Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's Dave Sharpe. Welcome to Wake Up Legendary. And my friends, we've got a very special guest on this morning, a very special guest, a real true legend in the house this morning. Many of you know who he is and have worked and learned from him. He is a regular on our coaching calls and also a former student here at Legendary Marketer, has a quite extraordinary story. And we're going to hear all about that here in just a moment. Remember, my friends, these Wake Up Legendary episodes are something that we do here for you to give you just some added value. Whether you're inside of our community and you're going through our curriculum, our training, whether you're somebody who's just looking from the outside looking in, right? This is all free knowledge, free value for you to get a taste of the behind the scenes stories from online marketers who came from, ordinary jobs, backgrounds, lifestyles, and chose to start an online business, whether that was out of necessity from things spilling over from the pandemic, whether that is just because they realize after so many years of working in the system, doing all the right things, getting the degrees, the good grades, the house with the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and the dog, and there's just not enough money at the end of the month. Whatever the reason is, it could even be somebody wanting to pick up a new passion, right? And learn a new skill and stay sharp. Whatever the reason is, we are here to not only provide you with curriculum and education, but also the stories behind the everyday average people who are taking up this, these challenges, this challenge of starting an online business. And Ryan Halbert, he was no different. Coming off of the pandemic, he had quite an experience with that, which led him here to becoming an online marketing. Sometimes you have to find the silver lining. Sometimes your curse becomes your gift. And I could say that's definitely true with him. So with that being said, Ryan, my man, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Dave. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Hey, man, good to see you too. We're switching it up a little bit and bringing on you this morning. It's been a while. I can't remember if you've even ever been on, or it's just been a really long time.
September 2021 is the last time I was on the show.
Wow. Okay. So, I should have known that, but, at least you do. At least one of us knows.
Joanne told me before we started.
All righty. Well, thank God bless Joanne. Who knows where we'd be without her. So, you've got an interesting story, and I always get a kick out of it now that you're okay, of course.
Oh,
yeah. But it's just so powerful, man. And I figured that we'd kind of start back at the beginning because we could jump into many different places, including where we'll probably end up, which is kind of what are you seeing with working with so many clients, and how can people get better results, and all of those things. But let's remind people kind of where you came from and what was your motivation for starting both in Legendary and an online business at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I started my working life when I was just a teenager. I was young. Parents had a farm, grew up on a farm. So a lot of outdoor stuff. And I hated school. So I didn't want to go. I would think about how I'd be paying to go through classes that I had no interest in. And that was just like a huge scam to me. And I didn't understand it. And I wasn't willing to do that. So I chose a career I kind of liked and didn't have to get educated for or college educated for, which was being a mechanic. So that's what I did. Did that for a lot of years. And then I was, kind of stuck. There was a period of time where I was the highest certified mechanic in the shop I worked at a dealership. So you got to have these different levels of training in order to do warranty work. And I was master certified. And I basically said, hey, I'm replacing engines over here. I'm rebuilding transmissions. I need a little more money here. And then it took me like 2 months to get that appointment. And then they gave me 50 cents. So that was just, that event completely changed everything. Cause up until then, I was just a loyal person who showed up and worked 110% every day, stayed late, come early and all that. And then that happened. I says, okay, this is not, this is not going in the direction I needed to go. So then I started my own business in heavy equipment repair because that was the highest paying area. And I was very strategic in what I had learned from other people I've talked to. And basically I said, you know what, if I just go into it in an industry and have a customer base that's going to need me regularly. That was one of the big things I learned from working at a dealership, was that the business owners were there every week, and the regular, person that just drives their car to work, they would come once every few months, and they were kind of a pain to deal with. So I said, let me create a business where my customers, the business owners. And that's what I did. But, I was just chasing money. So it didn't really work out so well. I did that for 4 years, and I made a lot of money, but I didn't like the work. I hated the work. I hated the stress. Long hours. IRS was a pain to deal with all the time. Even when I was doing nothing wrong, I was getting letters from them. And so I was just, in the meantime, trying everything else that I could to try to figure out how could I get out of this. I made a huge mistake. I'm second guessing. Maybe I should have gone to college. I didn't know, because here I am now, 10 years deep into this career, and I don't have anywhere else I can go. There's no other direction, because this is all that I know. I didn't know anything else. So I started trying all kinds of different things. I did the Amazon stuff, the drop shipping stuff, the day trading stuff. I did all of it. For some reason, affiliate marketing was the very last thing that I tried. And I can remember why. It's because I had known about it. I've heard of it. But for some reason, I just thought it was this really complicated thing. So here I am looking at affiliate marketing now. I'm like, oh, my God, more foreign language. I got too much other stuff I'm trying to learn. And just kind of put it on the back burner. And then, I ran out of options because the other stuff all didn't work. There was some reason or another that I couldn't be successful with that. So then I just came back over to looking at affiliate marketing. And I don't remember exactly what it is that got me to the sales page for Legendary, but it was definitely from doing research, because I was a Googler and a YouTuber and doing all these things. And the next thing you know, I'm going through this challenge, and I'm like, holy crap, it makes sense. Like, I actually understand what the guy's talking about. And it's interesting, because that was the one thing I was avoiding. I was actively avoiding trying to learn about it, because I thought it was this super complicated, difficult thing to do. Right. But once I went ahead and actually started paying attention to it, learning it, focusing on it. And it was one of the things I learned. It was either from, I don't remember if it was from you directly or if it was from Robert Kiyosaki's book, but it was, you gotta stay focused. And that was the thing I hadn't been doing. Was I was so distracted by so many different things that I wasn't focused on any one thing. I was just trying to make it all work. So I eventually said, let me focus on just this one thing and see how far I can get with it. And then, lo and behold, it worked. I went in and I went through the training, and I went and I bought the blueprints, and I started doing the stuff that's in the training, which is a big proponent of it. I started doing it and learning it, and then going through it and implementing it, then going back through it, and then asking questions and doing the stuff. And then that's when it started working.
Sorry, I was unmuted there. I didn't know when you were going to stop, so I just kind of was like sitting back, just chilling.
Just let me go at it.
Yeah, no, I was out of your way. Yeah, man. I mean, you mentioned the going through the training is a huge kind of proponent of success. And, I know that you have a lot of insight into working with our clients. And what do you just in terms of going through the education, do you find that most people actually are doing that? Are they not doing that? Why do you think so many people in this industry buy things and then don't go through it and don't kind of treat it like, I don't know, like any other school or education work that, you are going to go through. And if you go to college, you can't expect to graduate and actually, succeed without, I mean, unless you're a star football player and you're just going to somehow get, I don't know how they pass. They don't even graduate, right? They just go to the draft. I mean, so it's not even realistic. It's apples. It's not a good analogy. But, why did you put an emphasis on that? Is it because so many people you notice are not actually taking the time to learn these skills? And if they would something be different for them?
Definitely. Everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people spend a lot of time looking at everybody else and what everybody else is doing. And ultimately, you can't look at it. Yes, it's one thing to like look at what other people are doing just to kind of get an idea and to get, to learn, to do that, to learn, but you can't do that and just follow the herd. You know what I mean? That's what everybody does in high school. And then they go to college and then they all get degrees, and 52% of them end up in jobs that don't need the degree. And so when you're going into start a business and you're going to enter entrepreneurship, it's you're in charge of that. You're the decision maker in that. So you don't want to just carelessly make decisions based on what everybody else is doing, right? And that's the biggest thing. So one of the biggest things I see is I'll get either it'll get said to me directly, or I'll get a question that kind of alludes to like, okay, I know what's going on here. And it's that, one thing can be stated very, very clearly in the training that they have access to, and it can be detailed out and explained, but they're doing it a totally different way because, well, I saw this person doing that. Right. And that's not right. That person is not in the process of launching a business. It's not comparing apples to apples. They have a different audience. They have a different personality. They have a different background. They have different goals. And their long-term plan probably is nowhere close to what yours is. But all you're seeing is you're trying to set up a funnel and they did something a little bit differently. Right. So you can't. That's the biggest thing I see, the biggest why I put emphasis on that, because it's the training's there. And, and a lot of people I'm sure do go through it, but you can't just sit back and watch it passively. You want to go through and actually implement it to get the most value out of it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like instead of doing that, some people might find it easier to go and just look at what other people are doing. And that's not the best way to make a decision.
Yeah, exactly. We see this every day, this kind of shiny object syndrome, and it's so seductive, right? But I mean, I've been in this industry for 13 years, friends. And some of you are just coming into this industry and you're coming into just the whole online marketing space, and you're even following people right out there on Instagram. Some of them were former affiliates of ours, or current affiliates, or current customers, or just right. Maybe they've been doing this for a year. Maybe they've been doing it for 2, and maybe they're launching a new course. Just had somebody last week that was bashing us launching her own new course. And, it's like, well, that's fine. She learned what she learned here, right? From going through the actual training, right? Just like probably many of the people that you see out there or are following. And at the beginning, they did exactly what we're teaching you to do as well. Now maybe over time that changes for them as what, you mentioned that you can't compare your chapter 10 to somebody, or their chapter 10 to your chapter 1. The other thing that I often think about is, if you would go through the actual training and understand some of the mechanics and how to connect the dots, you would be able to come up with a lot more ideas on your own, right? Instead of looking around at everybody else and trying to it looks like a puzzle that you can't put this puzzle together. when in reality, it's kind of all laid out there. It just takes a little bit of time to go through and sort of deconstruct, or not deconstruct, learn how to construct and understand in your own mind. It's actually pretty simple once you understand the foundational elements of building a sales funnel and how a sales funnel works, setting up an autoresponder and how an autoresponder works, coming up with an angle in how to find an audience, going through, for example, our fishing formula business plan, and kind of just understanding how those 8 steps play such an important role in how you can use them no matter what you're promoting. And the goal is for you to actually understand what the hell you're doing, instead of having to look at somebody else, copy them, and just pray. Right? That's not a good marketing strategy. Right? And then you get frustrated because you're not getting the same results that they got or that they promise, when in reality, it's you're not doing the same thing. You think you're doing the same thing, but you're not doing the same thing. And so, we've come out with a new 5-day challenge. It lays out a lot of the groundwork for you to be able to learn the foundational elements. And if you're serious about your education, you can progress through and take more training from us. But the bottom line is that, man, dude, you're right. And I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of just somebody will ask a question, say on a coaching call, and you already know where it's coming from. It's well, I saw such and such doing this. And so now I'm wondering if you can help me make sense of it, right? And sort of copy and duplicate it. And it's like, no, we can't. Right? We need you to start from we need you to start from 0 instead of trying to jump to step 10, because then you're actually not, we want to get you to a point to where eventually you don't need us. We don't want to create dependent people to where you have to come back to us to decipher every single thing that you want to do. We actually want you to understand what you're doing. That's part of the reason it's a gift and a curse for us, right? Because what we want you to do is launch and leave the nest, right? Now that's it's sort of a bad business model for us, right? Because we don't keep you sort of dependent on us forever. But it's the right thing to do, which is why we do it. And so we want you to leave the nest. We want you to know how to think for yourself. And we also want you to not have to copy people in order to succeed, because then you just look like everybody else looks. Talk to us a little bit about, what you would recommend for somebody to find their own voice, in how you got comfortable being somebody who was a heavy equipment mechanic, not being on camera. How did you become comfortable on camera? How did you become comfortable being in front of people and in sort of finding your own message, being comfortable in your skin, and eventually, being able to think for yourself around your own marketing and even coaching people? What are some of the things that stand out for you around that?
Definitely. Yeah. So, for one thing, I mean, I definitely had the period of time where I was in my head too. It wasn't like just I flipped the switch and said, "Oh, I'm going to do this now," and I learned it. I'm going to do this now, right? It's everything for me was lots of learning and practice and repetition. Doing it a lot of times until I got really good at it. And really what I found is that I actually really enjoyed the technical elements of this business, and I enjoyed all the pieces of it. And then I got kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like challenged or obsessed with the result, right? Like, how can I hit this goal? Can I get this thing to happen? Right. Whether that was a sales goal or a number of views goal or a number of followers or whatever. And, I would set these little goals and I would always work towards them. But for me, I spent a lot of time in the beginning. I did the paid ads and I still use them. They work, but I started with paid ads as a way to not get on camera. I didn't want my friends and family to see what I was doing. I didn't want, right? It wasn't that I cared about what somebody who I'd never met before that lived across the country was going to say in my comments. It was more or less like, okay, you know, I got a lot of people. This is a small town I live in. Everybody knows who I am. And, you know, I got this business that is currently my livelihood and paying my bills and my rent and stuff. So I can't have my customers, you know, seeing me say things online and it's going to be unprofessional, right? I created every excuse I could to not actually go on and actually do the stuff. But then ultimately what it boiled down to was, I think, you know, I had seen some results, some success from, you know, using paid advertising, but it wasn't anything to write home about. So I finally decided, all right, you know what? It's been 45 days, 60 days of this. I'm not getting where I want to be. I'm understanding some of these other things and I'm understanding why this isn't working. So let me just go do the other thing. And by the time anybody finds me, I'll probably have enough followers. It won't really matter anyway. And that's actually exactly how it panned out. I got to myself to a point where I had to kind of like talk myself up a little bit and just, you know, get excited about it and then just start making videos. And it was a struggle even then. You know, I spent the first 30 days, I didn't really get I didn't see any results. I didn't see any views. I was on TikTok, 200 views every single post. And no matter what I tried, it wasn't working. And then one day, boom, it just worked, right? I had one video that did extremely well. And then it seemed like that was kind of, you know, how I broke through the ice. Every video after that progressively continued to do better. But ultimately, I started looking at actually what that video was. That video was a video of me telling the story about how I only got the 50-cent raise from my employer. So before that, I was making, you know, the side hustle videos, and I call them get rich quick videos because that's all they are usually. I was making the get rich quick videos and I was making these how-to videos, technical things. And looking back now, I understand why that didn't work, right? Because it was something that so many other people had done. I was one person in a sea of all these other people making those videos. And the couple times that may have worked, I got lucky, right? It wasn't because I actually did anything amazing or really connected with anybody, right? But then I had a video where I was just sharing something that nobody else had ever shared around a topic that was kind of hot at the moment, right? We had, you know, whenever you come in and say my wage is too low, people tend to kind of listen to you and pay attention to that. It's kind of a hot topic. And that video just performed extremely well. And then I continued the conversation for a very, very long time. I just kept talking about those types of things. I kept sharing experiences. I kept answering questions. I kept having people give me advice that I can then respond to and tell me their 2 cents. And I could do that. And then I was able to do that for a very, very long time. And that's basically what I did. And that's when I kind of realized, okay, wait a minute, this following the herd thing doesn't really work. I've got to actually be a human being that's unique in a lot of ways in order for this to work. And this is, you know, and this is dating back. This isn't even like this is just a right now thing. This is dating back to 2021 this is when I started.
Yeah. You know, to this day, it's, you know, what's interesting, man, is if I think back 13 years ago, it was the same exact, you know, it was the same exact formula. It's like way simpler than people make it out to be. It's just that we get in our heads so much that we avoid the work, avoid just going out there and testing things. And we get ready for so long. We either work really hard trying to avoid actually going through the curriculum. You got to make the time, right? You got to make the time to go through and actually learn. And then once you've learned and you have an idea, you're not going to retain all the information at first, but the hope is that you know enough to be dangerous, right? It's like you have to be an expert, but one time reading through a book, You should know enough to have a conversation about the book. And if you read the book, you should know quite a bit about what happened in the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should know enough to be dangerous. You should know enough to have an intelligent conversation. Anybody who's read an actual book all the way through, and you can always tell, right? If somebody's like read a book or not, or watched a movie or not, or done something or not. You can you sound intelligent, you know what you're doing, you can talk about it. Same thing goes with going through this curriculum. And then the next step is launching, right? That's why we named this new challenge the Learn, Launch, Lead Challenge. Then you launch, and that launch is a whole lot of uncomfortability that you push through. And what happens is whether it's maybe the first week, maybe it's the first month, whatever, there's going to be little quote, I call them miracles that are going to happen. And you just mentioned one. In today's day and age, you have the opportunity to go viral, right? What that simply means is that you have a video that gets more than your usual 42 views, right? Maybe for you, going viral is a couple of thousand views. There's no definition of going viral. I mean, it's just kind of like, damn, that video kind of took off. Like, I got a lot of views from that, got some followers, got some leads. And in some cases, they take off into the hundreds or thousands or millions. And most of the time, you're not even ready for that. Most of the time, because it's just like, oh my God, you weren't even expecting that you could have that big of a breakthrough. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting tons of messages and DMs and stuff like that. And I've seen people actually be overwhelmed from that level of success. But if you have your pieces in place, going viral is not a curse, it's a gift. And then you don't stop there. You just keep creating and you keep testing. And you figure out, wow, can I recreate that success? What about that particular video? Same thing if I create a lead magnet and I release it and it gets me, 7 out of 10 people who land on my opt-in page are opting in versus 3 out of 10. Wow. I got to keep that. I wonder if I can get 8 out of 10. I wonder if I can tweak the headline or make it even better. So I come out with something new there. And oh man, that took me back down to 5 out of 10, 50% opt-in rate. I need to put back my old one, right? Same thing with videos. If I have a video that goes viral, I need to try to recreate that video because maybe that's what my audience really likes. Maybe that's my thing, right? Sometimes it's answering questions. And I wonder if you've answered a lot of questions. And I think nowadays people want engagement. One of the funniest and most interesting ways that I've seen somebody create content is actually I believe it would be an autopsy guy or I don't know if he would be called a mortician. I don't think so. I think that's more of somebody who prepares somebody in a funeral home. This is
sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I didn't expect you. You're a heavy equipment mechanic turned, internet marketer. So, and I'm a construction guy. Anyways, anybody know the name of the guy who does autopsies or the girl? Anyways, this guy does autopsies. Okay. And he does them in the autopsy. So he creates content in the autopsy room. Now there's not a dead body laying behind him. Okay. But you can just tell that he's in a room. Okay. Medical examiner. Okay. Great. Thank you, Ethel and Eric and Karen. Okay. All of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Helping out a couple of construction mechanics here. But every single video at this point is just him putting up a question that somebody asked and answering that question. How powerful do you think it is? And how can somebody start to create content that's more engaging, Ryan, that's answering questions? How can I get my audience to start asking me questions so I can get myself in the position of an authority? Because the person who's coroner, thank you, Alex. It's one of these: coroner, medical examiner. Thank you, everybody. How can I get my audience to start asking me questions? Because the one who's asking the questions is the student. The ones who's answering the questions is the teacher. I need to put myself in that role of the teacher. That's what I need to do. So what are some suggestions or ideas that you would have for somebody if you can see that that's what they need to do, or for anybody listening here who wants their audience to start asking them more questions so they can get into that more authoritative teacher role?
Yeah, I like that. That's it. That's interesting. Yeah, like that example you just gave. I can't think of any connection I have where I could get those questions answered. Right? I can't think of where that's not something readily available to me. It's not just I don't have that person. I don't have that. Personally, haven't looked for that person, but when they show up, I might be really interested in what they're talking about because I really haven't seen somebody else give me this information before. And there's not a lot of other people that I can go to if I'm curious about these things. So, anybody can participate in a really interesting conversation about just about anything as long as it's actually interesting. So, the biggest thing is to just position yourself as somebody who's not readily available all the time. Not saying you shouldn't be available as the business owner or the marketer or the content creator, but what's different from what is readily available, right? What's really, really easy to find, and be a little bit different. Be that person in that space, in that area. I could even tie it back to my 50 cent an hour video, which is right. And I think the hook I used on that was here's how you can tell if your employer really values you or not. And then I just went into the story, and I was emotional. I was frustrated. I projected that into that video, and just said it for what it really was, and talked about it the way I really felt about it. And that brought the engagement in, that brought the people in. Right. So, we looked at a lot of different elements, right? And it's not always got to be so technical. It's just coming in and talking about something that the audience you want to reach is going to be interested in, but also making yourself look a little bit different. And then once you find a way that actually works and get their attention, just continue doing that over and over and over again, because it'll work for a really, really long time. Eventually, it might start to wear off a little bit, but it's gonna repetition is key on social media and in marketing, right? If something's working, continue doing it. For the same reason that if something's not working, you should stop doing it, right?
Yeah.
If something you've tried enough and it doesn't work, don't keep doing it, because it's not going to start to work all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You can't try it once and consider it a failure, but if you've done it 10, 20, 50, or in some cases, I've seen somebody, they've posted 200 times and they've gotten nowhere, but every post is the same.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing it. You got to change it up. And a lot of times you look at some of those posts and it looks the same as so many other things I've seen in the past.
What comes up for me as you were talking there was that if you want to be the teacher, you want to have people asking you questions, you got to start off teaching something.
Mm-hmm.
You got to teach something. And when you teach something, people will undoubtedly and inevitably ask a freaking question. They will have a question. And when they have a question, it doesn't matter if you've got one question in a sea of spam comments. Nowadays, those spam comments where they're like, Gina changed my life. Go follow her at, right? You can tell it's like a robot comment.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have 50 of those on your post, but you've got just Halbert down there at the bottom who just is like, well, how do I hook up my autoresponder to my funnel, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the question is. How do I set up a Facebook account, right? You take that one question and you answer it. And then when you answer a question, improve and show and demonstrate to your audience that you're willing to answer their question, guess what? And then you teach something more. Guess what? More questions will come. And it's like building on one video, one question. The next video, you'll get 2 questions. The next video, you'll get 4 questions. And people will just be asking more questions. The more you teach, the more questions they'll ask. The more dumb, and I'm just cover your kids' ears here because I'm just going to hit you with some real talk for a second, okay? We're going to get real here for a second because I need you to remember this. Say dumb shit in your videos and do dumb shit, and people are going to say dumb shit in the comments, right? If you don't say anything valuable in your video, you don't teach anything valuable, you're not going to get any real comments. You're not going to get any real valuable engagement, right?
Right.
You're not, right? You got to actually say something and teach something that people are you all picking up what I'm putting down? Is everybody, I want to make sure we got over 300 people on this right now. And I want to make sure that you are picking up what Ryan and I are putting down right now, because it's simpler than it seems. The reason why your marketing content is not taking off is because you're not teaching anything. And therefore nobody's listening and nobody's trying to figure out what you're saying. If you're teaching something, then they're going to be trying to figure it out. Why? Because they want the results of what that will do for them. And if you're all you're doing is you're talking about results or thinking that you need to talk about results, making claims, copying the latest and greatest hype marketer, and then you're like, well, you're in comparisonitis and you're trying to figure out how to be like them. No, stop all that. Stop all that. We've rid this entire community of those kind of things, because they're here today and gone tomorrow. It's not how you create a 13-year career inside of this industry. It's how you're here today, and then once once something bad happens to your business or some offer is no longer there to promote, you don't have any sustainability. You don't have any longevity. You need to know how to teach. You have to become a teacher. And if the teacher is there, the students will appear. They will appear because you're saying something valuable. And they'll be appreciative of you. They won't hate you. They won't buy just because they hate you, but they want the results that you've got or that you're saying that they could get. But then when they don't get them, they're resentful again. You teach them, you push them, you show them how to do it, but not in a 30-second or minute-long video. You don't give them everything. You give them enough to get them interested. You give them enough to wet their whistle. And then you say, let me know down in the comments what questions you have about that. Did that make sense? Click my link to get my free ebook that explains the top 5 ways to build a sales funnel in 2024. Whatever it is that you're talking about, right? What comes up for you when I use that word teacher? And if you build it, they will come, meaning if you teach it, they will ask.
Yeah, absolutely. It means exactly what it means exactly what it sounds like. And when you look at any of now, it's one of those things where maybe sometimes you got to hear somebody say it the way you just did before you really start to notice it. But you look at all the big dog marketers now. I'm not talking about Susie Q with her stand store that, is claiming she made X amount of dollars in the past couple of months and she's whatever, right? I'm talking about the big dogs, the millionaires, the billionaires that are on social media, big business people. Look at what they're doing. They're doing exactly what Dave's talking about and what we're talking and what we teach you in this training, which is to teach. They're teaching and they're providing value. They're educating inside of their content all the time. And they don't care about views because they're just going to come, right? I don't need a lot of views. I just need the right people, right? And that's it. So you can't ever really go wrong with, being a teacher. It's almost like a no-fail strategy. There's pieces of it where, you're going to get better at over time. Like I said earlier, continuously doing the reps, you're going to just get better at it. You'll know how to create a better hook and do all that fancy stuff, but you don't even have to really get too caught up in that when you're just beginning. You just have to teach them something. and don't teach them the same exact regurgitated thing that a lot of other people are teaching them that nobody actually cares about. That those different things where one thing has nothing to do with the next, and every single video is only applicable to one person, right? Pick something that you know a little bit about, that you can help people with, solve their problems, and just teach them about it every day. Teach them something new. Some things some things are going to go over their head, right? Some things are going to be that thing that completely changes everything for them. And then they're going to want to know more. They're going to want to keep working with you. They're going to want to watch every single video you post because they get value out of it every single time. So that's what it means to me. When you say to teach, right? I want to be that teacher that, I don't need to go to Google anymore. This is what happened when I bought the challenge, right? This is no smoke. I bought the challenge and I didn't need to go to Google anymore, or to go to YouTube, or to go to look at the other course or whatever. I found a teacher that I could connect with that made me understand things. So I didn't go and buy a bunch of other courses, right? And a bunch of other things that were meant to teach me the same thing, because I didn't start making money 3 weeks after I bought the thing. I found a teacher I connected with, and I didn't even want those things because I really, really liked the teacher. And the same thing will happen when you start teaching. The same thing will happen when you start teaching in your content regularly. People will just stick around because they have no desire to go and look for somebody else, because you do it better, that you do it in a way that connects with them. And this is where really personalizing your strategy and your style and your delivery, it really makes a difference. Because if you're just copying everybody else and you're just doing what Susie did, and then you're doing what whoever else did over here, now you got all these different things and nobody can connect with that because it's not original.
And there's a lot of great comments that are coming in as well, building on what we're saying here. And this is a simple one. Let me see if I can find it. Anyway, somebody said you got to make sure that you're learning while you're teaching, and that's a great point. I want to kind of hit on this here for a minute. Why that's so important. Not only do you need to continue learning while you're teaching, but you need to continue practicing, because that practice is going to give you something to actually teach. Whatever you're trying, you learn, you do, you teach. That's the whole equation here. You learn, you do. That is the, learning and doing have to come before teaching. You learn something, you implement it, and then you teach what happened for you. You don't have to share a generalized experience from you. You share your experience. And that's the whole formula here that we're talking about. It's such a simple, but yet so hard for some of us to do. Why is it hard? Well, because we overcomplicate the hell out of it. Mm-hmm. But it's learn something, do it, and then say, hey, my friends, welcome back to another dog training video. Yesterday, I sat Mr. Beagles down here and did the 1-2 the RX bar formula. And when I set the bar down and I told him to stay, he didn't listen. He came over. And so I switched flavors. And when I switched flavors and I dropped it on the ground and I said, stay, he stayed. For more tips like this, make sure that you hit the follow button and make sure that you download my 5 ways to get your dog to stay today. See you on the next video, right? I mean, the point is that I learned something somewhere. I learned about the RX bar formula that gets your dog to stay and pray before he comes today, right? Whatever the hell you're teaching or talking about, right? I'm just coming up with something off the top of my head. but hopefully you're getting the point. I learned it somewhere. I did it. I have to do it. I can't learn it and then I'm not. This isn't philosophy. Nobody gives a shit about what you have to say if you have not done it yourself. That was like me when I was in drug treatment back in 2004, and I'm coming fresh off of the hard knocks life for us, right? And I got some counselors who are like, oh, yeah, like I went to college and I've got a degree about counseling, and I want you, I want you to tell me all about yourself. And I'm like, dude, I ain't telling you jack squat. But then I went into another counselor's office who was like, yeah, I was an addict too. Yeah, I got 10 years clean now. What's going on, man? And I'd be like, for real? How'd you do it? Right? Because this is a true story. The details are a little bit different, right? Whether somebody had 10 years or whatever, but I was able to relate more with somebody who I knew struggled with the same thing that I struggle with, or has done the same thing that I'm trying to do. And so the cool thing is that I would also listen to somebody who only had a day clean. If they were like, hey man, I've been in your shoes and I stayed clean yesterday, and I'm clean so far today, I'd be like, damn, really? For real? Right? Way more than if somebody just had learned but didn't do. So the same thing works when you're out on social media and you're creating marketing content. You learn it, you do it. And now suddenly you have the identification pieces to be able to help somebody to say, oh yeah, like this person's, I want to know what you did, man. Show me what you did. Don't just talk to me. Don't wave a finger. Don't wave a finger at me. Don't preach to me. But just share with me your experience. And when you start sharing that experience with people, it's really powerful. And that's why your story is so powerful. One thing that you didn't touch on that I wonder if you will is like the COVID piece, man.
Yeah.
Like you were in the hospital. Like, I wonder if you would just tell people like how, like you had some ads running and then when you came out, you like, if you would just share as we bring this in for a landing, like how this, like you had a near death experience and it was right after you had kind of launched your business, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was it was a very interesting pivotal time. So basically this was December of 2021 is when this happened. This was beginning of December, and by time like a week before Christmas, like a 3-week ordeal, this particular story here. So I had been I had some regular income coming in from my new marketing business, still had my heavy equipment business. So I'm doing both. I got both gigs going, and I didn't have intentions at the moment of shutting down my mechanic business, but I was cutting back the hours a little bit. I was seeing the potential, right? I was sold on the fact that, okay, I'm capable of this other thing. It's working. I'm liking it more. And I'm seeing a greater amount of possible growth over here than I'm ever going to get over here. So I started adjusting my ratio. So and that consisted of really just, continuing to do my day job thing, but then also posting content, writing emails every day, the normal stuff. And also I was still using some ads. I was running ads for a couple different, or for one different niche. And then I had some ads running for the primary niche that I was creating organic content about. And my wife, fiance wife at the time got, not at the time, she's still here, she lives in my house. She got COVID, right? She got sick. And I was one of these guys, this is a big hoax, man. I ain't going to get sick off this thing. This thing ain't going to get me. This thing ain't going to get me. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not doing none of this because my immune system's good. My immune system's stronger than everybody else. So that was my approach. I says, I work on this equipment and I get dirty and I eat a sandwich without washing my hands and I do all this stuff. And, no sickness can ever get me. Well, wouldn't you know, once it comes into your house, it tends to get you. And, it started off kind of like, all right, I had a headache. It was pretty bad. I was coughing a little bit. It wasn't, a little wheezing, wasn't really all that good. And then it started getting worse, and it got to the point where it was scary. It was quite very scary. And, very scary to the point where I didn't give a shit about anything else, right? I didn't care how much money I had in the bank. I didn't care whose tractor I had just taken apart, that they need it back together as soon as possible. I didn't care about I didn't care about how much the IRS said I owed them. I didn't care about none of it. I was really, what I started to care the most about was breathing, because I couldn't even get up and walk from the couch to the bed without going into a coughing fit. All I cared, like Candace, I only cared about living at that point, right? Well, I wound up in the hospital with this. And if any of you remember back then, I mean, it was just, you went in and you were going to another planet, because family couldn't come and visit. Nobody could come in and see you. Nobody was allowed in. You had to have the mask. Everybody was separated. The doctors came in. They had a freaking hazmat suit on. It's like, man, this is, yeah, I was all alone. It wasn't like a trip to the doctor's office. And it started progressing. It kept getting worse. It kept getting worse. So my first trip into the emergency room, I was really aggravated, because I went in there and I was telling them, I had all these issues. I think, and it was the first time I've ever actually gone in an ambulance. Right. I had never been in an ambulance my entire life, and I rode in one twice during this 1 week period. So I went to one hospital, and they didn't admit me. They brought me in the emergency room, and then they just sent me home. And I says, okay, good. They did what they all do. They got you in enough to hit the insurance, and they send you on your way. Then I come back home, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't breathe. So I had to go back to the hospital and get admitted again. I went to a different hospital this time, of course, learned from the first one. And then, I was in there about 3 weeks without going into too much detail. I was scared for my life, because I could not breathe unless I had machines that were assisting me with breathing. It was that friggin' bad. I wasn't hacking up anything. It wasn't like I forgot how. I just couldn't do it, right? If I attempted to take a breath, I would go into a coughing fit that was so bad that it lasted so long that I couldn't breathe. Like, I'm gasping and I'm like panicking, and then the panic sets in, and that's like the worst thing. So all this time this is happening, I didn't care about anything else. And then eventually, and my phone died too. So here I am going through all this. My phone died. I'm in the hospital. I can't contact anybody. Nobody knows what's going on. My mother and my wife were calling, every single day. So they were staying in the loop. But it wasn't until I was actually in there for a week where I was finally able to talk to somebody and actually have a conversation that was, fluent. And then they wanted me to stay in there a little longer. But I was in the hospital about 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that, in total. And then I went home, and I was still on bed rest for quite a long time. But what had happened while I was in there was potentially a tragedy, devastating, aside from my possible death. What had happened was, a lot of my customers, right, from my heavy equipment business, their stuff was still broken. Their equipment was still going down. They still needed these machines to get fixed, because if it didn't, they weren't making any money. So if it wasn't going to be me, somebody had to do it. And this is where my business model, my approach backfired, where I said, you know what, I'm just going to talk to business owners. So this whole time I had this business, this entire 4 years, I only had 13 customers in total. That was my highest number. And I would see each one of them every week. So it was plenty of work, plenty of hours I could work. But when that happened, that also, it wasn't like there was anybody that didn't need me during that period of time. So three plus weeks went by. It was a total of 6 weeks that I really couldn't. But I can only say it was 3 weeks. But 6 weeks where I would say there's no way I could have gone out and worked. And they all had to find somebody else. right? I lost all that work. Projects that I had started and I was maybe waiting for parts and whatnot that I couldn't go back and finish, right? Somebody else had to come in and finish my work that I started. And that was extremely demasculating, but there was also nothing I could do about it, right? I didn't have another option. I didn't have an employee. I didn't have somebody I could send in to run the business while I was gone. That business died the minute I couldn't show up and do the work. The minute I couldn't do the job, I couldn't clock in, that business died and revenue stopped. And that was, I couldn't make any money. When I got out of the hospital and I didn't have a phone charger with me. So when I charged my phone and logged in, this was something that was on my mind because I knew I had an ad campaign running with no end date, running at $20 a day. And so this was Facebook ads. So there was some panic that would set in from time to time, but I would try not to think about it. I knew I had enough savings. I'm doing the math as I'm laying there with the machines helping me breathe, saying, okay, as long as I can breathe on my own, then it doesn't really, and I have this much in savings, right? It's you start trying to think about some other things to distract yourself a little bit. But the thing that I discovered once I was able to charge my phone and look in there was that I was actually profitable. I was very, very profitable. So this whole time I'm laying there dying in the hospital, I was making money and I didn't even know. And part of that was that I'll give you a quick look into the strategy. So what I had an organic video go viral, a video that was a draft that I posted, went viral, it just did it. And that brought in a bunch of traffic. It brought in a bunch of sales. But what also happened was some of those ads were retargeting the people that came to the funnel and didn't buy. So now I was following up with people, even though I was dying, because of an ad campaign that I set up, and they had no idea. They're investing into this guy, and here I was. So anyway, I can. But this was the pivotal moment. So this was when I looked at it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like one of the best things. Like if I was able-bodied and I was actively doing things and seeing these happen when they happened, I might have went in and screwed it all up. I wasn't there and I just let it do its thing and it just worked and it just went and it just happened the way it happened. So that and I, without right, it was profitable. We'll say it was profitable. It was a profitable trip to the hospital. And so I mean, that was a pivotal moment because now I come out trying to figure out, I had a lot of things to do. I had to figure out, all right, where are my customers at for my other thing, right? What about this job that I know I didn't finish? What about these things? And I'm getting off these like heartbreaking phone calls where it's like, no, dude, we had to find somebody else. Okay, let me know if you need anything. Hey, man, I had to bring someone else in to finish that. Hey, I had to drop that off at the dealer. Hey, I'm like, oh my God, like every freaking thing. There was not a good phone call to come of it. It's like nobody gave a shit. You were just about almost dead. So that was a pivotal moment. The same event, right? The same event that destroyed one business, my other one carried me through. So, and it just so happens that it wasn't planned. It just happened that way, right? Maybe I should have wore the mask. I don't know. It would have been a little different, but, and washed my hands a little more often. But I'll tell you what, after that, I will never smoke a cigarette again. I smoked a cigar not too long ago and I was like, ooh, man, not feeling it. Right. But at least you don't inhale those. So it was a little bit different, but, yeah, I'll never touch a cigarette again. But that was the moment where I decided, I says, okay, this is going to happen. I can sell my assets. I can sell my things I have for my other business. Business is pretty much dead anyways. It's the end of the year, do them taxes, no income for the next year, and, you know, wipe it clean right there, put an end to it, and start selling stuff off, you know. And I figured out, all right, you know what? I've got enough in my savings and I'm in good enough of a position financially. I can screw this up for 12 months and I'll be all right. If I can't figure it out in that amount of time, I'll just, or something happens, I can't keep it working, I'll just go back and I'll get another job, right? That's right. My worst case scenario is most people's life strategy. So it's not that big of a deal. So that's what I did. And then, well, here I am.
Yeah. The rest is internet history, my man.
Absolutely.
And we're so glad to have you, man. And I'm glad that we took the time to hear that. I'm laughing, of course, my friends, because Ryan is funny. Very serious topic, and we're certainly sensitive to anybody who lost somebody during the pandemic. But sometimes your curse turns into your gift, and I just wonder how many of you right now, are missing the important parts of that story, or the fact that he actually launched, right? He actually launched. And sometimes launching is, even though it feels scary, is better than doing nothing at all, because you're at least launched. Something is happening. And if you're luckier than Ryan was, where you're still conscious and able to, if you have a campaign or you have something that's going desperately wrong, you can turn it off. Hopefully you're not in the hospital on a ventilator, but you happen to be lucky. It doesn't always happen like that, where, things actually ended up working out, but they worked out simply because you launched, man. That's what kind of guy you are. It's what kind of guy you've always been. It's why I love working with you. It's why I love having you here on the team. If you want to catch more of Ryan, he's on our Blueprints coaching calls. He's on Decade in a Day. He's here, coaching clients on a regular basis with us. That's where you can hear more from him, learn more from him, hear more hilarious stories. And thanks for actually circling back on that one and sharing a little bit more detail. Not only is it funny, it's only funny because you made it through, of course. And of course, the way that you tell the story, but there's a lot of little learning lessons to take away from that. So it's worth a re-listen, my friends. Ryan, it's always a pleasure, brother. Stay legendary, my friend. All right. And yeah, we'll talk to you here real soon. Okay, man.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me in.
See you. Keep up the great work, man.
Thank you.
All right, my friends, you can get started here at legendarymarketer.com/enroll. You can start with our challenge, get into our more advanced training if that feels like a fit for you and something that you want to do. We are people that you want to work with, and we will continue to serve. We will continue to bring edutainment just like today. And we thank you for being here. Thanks for all the amazing comments for Ryan, of course. He's a stud. He's funny, he's smart, and he's a product of the product here, which is something that we're super proud of, and so happy that he gets to coach our clients and interact with you all on a daily basis, and you get to interact with him as well. So with that being said, we'll be back here tomorrow for another episode. As always, go be great, do something productive. It's Monday, start your week right. Hopefully this episode helped. You can catch us on all the major podcast platforms. We'll put the replay up. Plus right here on this page, this Facebook page, you can catch all the replays as soon as we're done. It'll just live right here on the Facebook page. So you can go back and you can watch it or rewatch it as many times as you want for all the education as well as the entertainment. And thanks again, Ryan, for the amazing story and all the value on today's episode. With that being said, boom, one last one for Ryan. Get out of here, my friends. Have a great day. Be legendary. Peace.